Welcome back to the Fantasy Take TV podcast. Gather round is over. We've got a lot to discuss. We've got to get to some news. It's been a Tuesday. A lot of injury news has flooded in. We're going to look at pretty much all lines this week. It's been a difficult start to the season to navigate with those early buys, and now heading in towards upgrade season. We've got some players to talk about. We've got a few questions mixed in with those that JD's put to the Discord channel. So in future, you ever want to get to them, be sure to jump in there. But we'll start with how we went last week. George, how was Gather Round? And how did you go in SuperCoach?
Good for the state Gather Round. You guys want a piece of that apparently, or AFL planning for that. I would say you have everything else. Let us have this. But SuperCoach, 2,287 trades were in Ollie Dempsey, Whitfield and Sam Darcy. Out two kind of forced trades in Wines and Windy, and Billings, well.
Oh, that was a forced trade as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Forced trade watching him. So those are the trades. Honestly, we got Whitfield now, honestly. I hate this so much, but he's just
I love Whitfield.
Him already getting looked at on the bench. I'm like, here we go again. But as long as he's no soft tissue or anything like that history, so as long as he's all good, he'll be all right. But I really
first
wish
pack he went back into George and he's off the ground for a quarter.
This is not how I wanted to spend $540K, but the Windy trade just got from bad to worse, and that left me with a donut. So I had to get someone in. I mean, maybe could have gone Hayden Young, but I don't know. It's just been a mess. The defense been like a mess this year. So my MVP,
yep.
Toggle's a bit down. So my MVP this week, I'm going to give it to Jack Steele. I probably should give it to Heaney. I'll give it to Steele. I think this pick's gone from strength to strength, which has been great. So happy with the Steele pick, and good to see him back just from a football perspective, because it was quite hard to watch to see what he had become last year, but fully fit Steele. We like that. Fault of the week. Well, the team did okay this week. I'm going to give it to probably Howes. I needed something from him because I had no choice but to field him. And looks like he played on Isaac Rankin. So I'm debating whether to trade him this week, because we could see a price drop into the buy. He's got this 30 and 46 in his system. So unless you're planning to hold for a long time and hope that this improves, this is close to a dead pick. But yeah, he definitely played on Rankin, which concerns me if this lockdown continues. So Howes gets my fault of the week, but I'd love to see that scoring go back up, but I'm just not sure if it's going to happen. And that was my week. How about you, Jackson?
George, I scored pretty well this week at 23.07, and to be honest, I couldn't blame you if you'd given Heaney MVP every round, every week so far this year. I mean, who knows how many of us wouldn't have jumped on if it wasn't for your mad love and fervor for him in the lead up to round one. So I think a lot of us owe you a thank you for leading the hype train on that one. My trades last week were pretty cookie cutter. It was Dempsey and Darcy in for Bilbo Billings and Marty Hoare. So yeah, get rid of those D boys. Kind of felt like forced trades anyway. Free up some money this week. I was toying with Fisher to Flanders, and I didn't do it in the end, which cost me 50 points. So maybe the -3 goes to me, or the false elite goes to me. But I wanted to hold on to that so I could get Nick Martin this week. And my MVP, I mean, it's got to go to Yo, right? It has to. A 130 this week. His average is now up at 105. Been a great pickup and really helped with my structure as well. Eno, let us see how you went.
Yeah, not good, boys. 21, what was it? 70, 80, something like that. Not good. I spoke about it on my vid. I think my team structure just is totally wrong, or hasn't been optimal to start the year. I've started like Martin and Young and whatever, but use trades and boost to get them to like 650 mids or 600 mids, what have you, like a Sarong and Butters that was really keen on but didn't start. So I've just been spending trades and boost trying to fix my team to players I was keen on but didn't start. And I might even do that again this week. So look, it's not been good. I've got too many 600k players. So, a few in defense, 4 in the midfield. Started Jackson, who I guess is highly priced, 550-ish, and then Rowan as well, who was like 630. So it's just I'm fielding a poor score every week or two, and best at it was okay. I wasn't going great anyway because I didn't start Gorn, but this week it got exposed. So got Gorn in, but too late. Missed his 160 average for the first 3 weeks of not owning him when Rowan was doing average. But yeah, that's enough about me. I want to just talk about the overall team and landscape, whatever. I'll give the MVP to Rowan. He deserves it with a 147 after he's probably the fault last week when I wasn't on the podcast to say it. So, yeah, he's reversed that. And then the fault, I guess Stewart with a 77. Again, like I said, you pay 600k for players, and when a few of them underperform and he was the worst one, it exposes my team. Him, Green 109, Sarong 94. Like it just, too many of those players going poorly. I copped it this week. So I think I haven't really changed rank. Like 70k week 1, then to 30k or 35k. And now I'm like 39k. Like I've just sat there for 3 weeks. So
you should see a bounce this week with Stewart's.
Yeah, so I've only got Heaney on buy,
money.
and then I've got rest of the primos playing. So maybe people have a day cost. I don't know. We'll see, mate. We'll hope. But anyway, you boys are going well. So hopefully I can make it up during the year. It's a couple hundred points, right? Like that's probably just not starting Gorn in the end, isn't it? And a couple of captains.
I was 500 points ahead of both you 2 years ago, and you both caught me post buy. So you can make up a lot of ground.
Did we catch you or did we catch the competition? I can't remember.
Yeah, we all finished about 1k that year.
Yeah, something like that. It's been like that for a few years for me.
Yeah, so I think we had a pretty good recovery run. I do think that where we're ranked at the moment, George, is better than where we are typically 4 rounds in at like 6,500, which is, I think you're around the same overall rank, aren't you? I have a feeling usually I'm still like 15, 20k at this point, getting ready to make a charge.
I'm at
it's weird with the early buys, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, there's nothing. I think I'm like 150 points off 1k, so there's like not much in it. So
yeah, I guess it's a positive. It was only been half best 18, half best 22. So 2 more best 18s. Maybe I can get my team in a better shape by round 7 and do something then.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing as well is like the scoring has been pretty strange at the moment. In the sense that there's a few defenders that are averaging 120 plus. There's a handful of mids that are all over 125. You've got Gorn going 130. You've got Heaney going 145. And the reality is they'll probably revert to what they actually will be. Their season average will be at some point. So like, is Luke Ryan going to keep going at 133? Probably not. So if you don't own him, you maybe get some points back on that. Steele probably isn't going to go at 127 for the year. He's probably more like a 115 guy. So, there'll be other points where like, if you don't have some of these guys that have gone off, I would expect them to undo some of that over the next few weeks, but I guess we'll wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, Gorn's 150 in SuperCoach, right? Not counting round 0. So
that's true. Yeah.
3 weeks of that, he's, I was copping it left, right, and center.
For sure.
That's what it is. That's deserved, really. Round 0 didn't help me at all. Went from Grundy to Gorn and the other way, and Steele, Bonner. They're the 2 that kill me. Steele, Bonner, and then the fact that I trade Bonner in and then I boost him back out is just like dead, bro. Like, and then he's gone back to back. It's crazy.
Yep. There's definitely going to be some lessons to take away in terms of reacting to round 0 and like where it was good and where it was bad. Because we probably got more advantage than we didn't, right? Like we wouldn't have had Heaney,
of course,
unlikely. But like,
no one would have, so it's not as bad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But then there are definitely some things that like you make mistakes on, for sure. Like, I was sharing a team where I had like Cherry and Sharp still before round 1.
I wish we didn't have Discord.
Like Grundy and whatever.
We can go back and check these things.
Close Discord until March 15 next year.
It happens. It does happen.
Anyway,
so let's crack in though, because we're at where we're at, and now we just got to make the best of the bad situation or a reasonable situation for those listening. There are some that are in very good situations and just want to capitalize on that. So let's 100%. Crack into some injuries and advice, shall we?
Yeah.
All right. I'll handle the news, and a bit shorter than last week, which is good, probably about half. But going from top to bottom, Adelaide to West Coast, or Bulldogs, whoever's last. So first is Parnell has done a shoulder injury. and he's TBC. He was a 170k rookie. He played quite poorly, and I think he was dropped anyway. But someone's going to slot into that halfback slot at the Crows. Who is it? I don't know. It might be a Nan Curvis who's 240k. It might be a. Doesn't sound like Dawson because I listened to the Crows presser today, and it sounds like they're going to stick with a similar midfield mix with a bit more Rochelle. So that's that. Lockie Fogarty is listed as TBC with a wrist issue. So. And just to touch on Carlton too, Hollins is a test with his groin, Walsh is a test with his back, and Zach Williams is not on the injury list, obviously concerns with ice at the end of the game. So what that means is maybe that helps Carroll if Fogarty doesn't play. I know they're different roles, but I know Fogarty can play higher up the ground. So a bit of a watch on that because I'm slightly worried about, I've got Carroll and Clark on the bench at the moment and concerned of their job security going forward. Walsh is a big one as well. Zach Reed listed as 3 to 4 weeks again. I'm holding this, and I just hope he makes 1K at this point. Setterfield's out for 2 to 3 with a knee, so this is a flare-up. He's apparently had this before. So opens up a spot for who might take it.
Isn't this why he missed a week?
Yeah.
Already this year. Yeah. So it's just reflated up. And just on the Reed news, I got yelled at for saying like, oh man, he's been 3 to 4 weeks for 3 weeks already. Zach Reed last week. And then sure enough, he's back to 3 to 4 weeks. Like, this is ridiculous. We got told that this is potentially a 1 or 2 weeker. And it's going to be like 8 weeks. I joked that we're going to be told in like 2 weeks from now that he's going to have had season-ending surgery on his hamstring. And I still feel like we're heading for that direction. It's so frustrating, even though there were photos of him on the training track today. So hopefully he's actually trending in the right direction. Very important for Essendon, not just our sides. But yes. So in terms of who comes back for Setterfield, it's Durham, who missed last week with concussion. And then I think Shields at the point where he's almost ready to return as well. So he might get a look in too. Otherwise, Sardis would be the third one there.
Your man, Shrek is a test.
Let's go. Mud Jackson.
Enjoy football again. Let's go.
Yeah.
Honestly,
true.
This was a stressful 4 weeks with no Jackson. After that second week, I feel like a 150 was on the cards at any point. Unfortunately, posted 290s.
I think Flanders in the end better pick if you were going head to head. Points wise, no, I think he put on like maybe an extra 80 points or something. But
Jackson's at a
got to
nice
trade
price
him
if you want to cash in.
Yeah, which I think I'll probably do, but
I think that's a really hard one and worth talking about later because he probably does come down in price, but he's also probably a top 6 forward. And I guess the other nice thing about the Shrek news is for anyone that owns Sarong,
a midfielder,
like for him, it probably should help in terms of their scoring as well.
Yeah.
Dangerfield's listed as a test. What that means for Jai Clark, who was subbed, I don't know. Maybe Parfit goes out, I don't know, but kind of worried about his job security. Will Day's listed as 2 weeks. This is how Essendon should take notes of how to calculate weeks. He's reduced every week. Mitch Lewis.
Well, that means he's going well with recovery, Jordan. Like, clearly Reed's not. I know JD will blow up, and it does suck that I can't predict a hamstring from day one until when they're back. Who knows, mate? Next week, Will Day might say setback, and it just happens. Depends how they go. That's it.
Okay.
Everyone gets frustrated, but I think
Mitch Lewis
had a bad run.
Yeah, Mitch Lewis out for 1 to 2. So this is kind of awkward if you like Ramsden, because I believe Ramsden has the spot of Mitch Lewis. So interesting to see what happens there.
It'll be tough. It'll be bubble next week, and you won't know if Lewis isn't back. Yeah. So it'll be very difficult to go there.
Yep. Now on to Melbourne. So Bowie's listed as 5 to 6 weeks with that shoulder or collarbone. Horse listed as 2 to 3 weeks. They have I think they have a settled 7 defenders. So I'm not quite sure if Hoare plays again or if he's sub.
We won't know. The bye's there, and then you just see coming out of the bye if they want him back in. Might be sub guy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They'd already moved Petty forward, right? And still didn't need the extra defender.
Sailing went back, right?
Yeah. But I mean, like they kind of play different roles.
I'm not sure. Wouldn't put your hat on it. But it's
I think this is the
impossible.
problem with Hall. Like, even if he's back in 3 weeks, there's a chance he doesn't play for another 2 to 3. So,
And then Bowie's back 2-3 weeks after that.
Yeah.
And he's got that 11 in this system. So, yeah. McAuliffe went off with some sort of, was it ankle or something?
ankle.
Yeah.
He's a test.
Yeah.
And that's
apparently came back on the ground. So
he had good points per minute, but sub. So is what it is. And that's the news.
That's the news. Yeah, it wasn't too much. I guess Big Watch is like what? Walshy, I guess, if Carroll owners. Nothing else really. It was one of the more like
Danger.
Zach Williams is fine. Yeah, Danger.
Clark, I mean, I think
nothing too major.
Danger back threatens Clark, and then Elijah Hollands, we're thinking might be spending times on the sidelines with his sub-day injury, but he's a test as well. So if Walsh and Hollands get up, I think that is quite a pretty big danger signs for Carroll. He's got the 1 break even, so you can still see another week out of him, but might be one that we're moving on sooner rather than later, which is very unfortunate because the other pick was Sharp. It's absolutely flying at the moment. So it's going to be a 100K loss just right there.
Yep. Quick little exercise, boys. Thought we might incorporate this in. I've just got the most trade-in players. And look, we're going to talk about every line as we go in a sec, but this is the top 10% because when looking at just the overall, they're actually vastly different, as you can imagine. I think, look, Steele's third in the top 10% of people bringing him in, but he's like 9th. I was surprised Juan Francis sort of stuck up. I think he's number 2 overall, but 4th in top 10% as well. So bit of the top 10% still looking at him, which I think he's not looking like getting DPP, but we're not sure. It's only 2-game sample and there's only 2 games left, and Wines is back this week. So, this is current top 10% coaches who they're trading in this week. That can't be right with Heaney. Is that what you're
that's what I'm looking at going like, how is Heaney going up 9%?
Yeah, look, maybe we shouldn't trust this because it's just on SuperCoach's website.
But the rest of the trade
looks fine, right?
Seem reasonable. Yeah, like the Heaney one's just very puzzling.
Does it say the same for you guys if you look on the fly? You have a look, JD. Anything stand out, George? I'll go to you first.
Did you do ranked in top 10%?
Yeah,
1%. Yeah.
10.
Well, I don't blame them for trading in Heaney on the buy.
No, it's 9%.
He's gone that well.
That can't be right. What are they doing? Anyway.
So a lot of people going early.
Lads? Yeah.
A lot of people going early on Closey. I'd feel quite confident doing that. Can't see him being dropped. He was excellent for them, mature age. So I think that's good. Flanders and Steele, I mean, that looks about right, the top 3. Steele's the prime mid target. He's gone up a fair bit. Like 60K it's not massive, but it's a bit. So still gettable.
70K from a lot of other guys. Cheaper. So
probably had to be like, obviously it was a massive tackle fest at the small ground. So probably this was the prime week to do it. Like straight captain in fantasy for me. I don't think he even looped. And then Flanders too, off the halfbacks. I don't really know what he's going to average in this role, but he's a pig wherever he goes. They want the ball in his hands. And I think the kick-ins will probably come at some point, but they could run, I don't know, a defender sub if they want, sub the defender on, move, sub out of mid, like a Humphrey or Graham or whoever, I don't know, move Flanders in the midfield. Like I can see that happening. But he looks like F2 behind Heaney at the moment. Yeah. Almost got my stuff for that. But it looks about right.
To answer your original question, of what stands out, apart from Heaney obviously traded in, I think there's 2 mid prices in there, which is generally surprising to go after them. So Horn Francis and Meek is the 2 that both have pretty attractive break evens, but Horn Francis just being 1 week removed from soft tissue injury and looking very, very unlikely to get forward DPP unless he has, I think we calculated it's like 47 or 46% forward time over the next 2 games. That's what he needs to get there, which is pretty unlikely. So I think that ends up being pretty tricky because how much cash you're going to make out of him, maybe 100K, which is still a pretty good amount depending on how he scores. But that's a little bit of an awkward one. And then, Meek in there. who's showed glimpses in the past as a number one ruck and has obviously coming off a pretty impressive 130, but also at that price range is a little bit awkward, 360k. And I know people looking to jump off Grundy this week and may not be able to go up to a big option, but surprised that he's in there over a Marshall, a Gawn, a English.
Yep. Yeah, well, we'll get to the trade outs now. We'll talk further a lot of these players in the podcast, but just wanted to have a quick look before we started to see if there's any big surprises. Like, 17% are trading out Grundy, as you see, and Jackson. I guess some people will have him in their ruck, but probably not many. And as you said, was he the highest ruck on that other list? So they're all sort of going in different directions. No one's really like a standout, I guess, besides Meek. So this is weird. Sarong's going out here. Stewart's going out here.
So I mean, the top three ones are the three that I'm trading, which I think all make sense. Luke Jackson is one we kind of talked about. You might flip, but doesn't make sense for everyone. He could be kept. You might have other things to do. Sarong is the weird one because I think he's a keeper, and if you brought him in, it should be as a keeper. Tom Stewart, I wouldn't be jumping off him either. So I think, the top three all make sense. The next three are all a little bit more puzzling for me because it seems very sideways or reactionary. And then I think the last four all make sense. Massimo is probably the one that I'm less keen to jump off just straight away, but I think there are certain teams where that would make sense.
Yep. Any of your thoughts, George?
Sarong and Stewart are odd trade outs. Nothing wrong with them.
About 1,000.
And I actually thought more would jump off Mass, even though he's I'm holding, I think. But 87% owned and only 4% trading him out. So basically everyone's going to field him, really. So be interesting to see how he goes this week.
Yeah, I think with Pink and Caulfield, see people are trading out. They're going them to Closey, Hall, Reed, those types. They'll keep Mass and do something else later. Possibly not too sure. All right, that was just a quick look at that. Let's get to the defenders. So, we're going to go through a few here. I mean, people have been asking us to rank them, I think, a lot in the questions that JD was getting. So, I think we know sort of what the top 3 or 4 are, and then we can discuss the rest because that's probably where it gets a bit more difficult. So, who do we agree on? George, it's Ryan until he doesn't play football anymore at this point, it seems.
He's very annoying. You think he's going to go have a down game because he just doesn't score for a bit. And then he scores 30 points in 5 minutes. I'm like, here we go again.
He's 28. I just had to look at his age because I don't know if you guys remember that LeBron tweet some guy made when he was 30. And he's like, LeBron's 30. This shit ain't going to go on any longer. And he's still playing at 30. It's one of the most famous.
Ryan, I think, is actually young. He's
28. So look, doing what he's doing, he still has another
in his prime.
But him? Who else?
I thought he was going 140 on the weekend, and it was actually frustrating to just see a 110 at the end. Ryan Sheasel, I think, is the obvious one, averaging 124 and just looks amazing. They'd have to shift role for him not to be up there. And then I think we'd all be comfortable saying, despite his poor start to the year, Dacos will figure it out and be in the top of his line.
Yeah.
And then George, anyone else you got locked in there, George?
Well, they're my top 3 at the moment. At 4, I've got Nick Martin. Just the tog is absurd. We were speaking about this last night, JD. How confident are you that the role sticks?
I'm pretty confident. I don't really understand where the chat has come from outside of Kane Corns. If I'm being honest, it sounds like he's the one that kicked it off this week. Where Essendon struggled as a side last year was coming out of halfback, and they specifically moved Nick Martin back into that role to address that. As far as I've seen, Brad Scott has given him nothing but praise for how he's performed in that role and what he's doing, and he seems to be building into it each week. I don't understand why they would, 2 weeks ago, coaches votes. Why would they move him out of that role when Ridley's out of the side for another 6 to 8 weeks? That's your other distributor anyway. And you've got games like on the weekend where McGrath got locked down and could do nothing. So what, we're meant to take him out, revert to a worse structure than last year and have no drive out of halfback? to put him on a wing where we've just recruited wings like Dersma to free up Nick Martin. So I don't see why he would change role whatsoever. To me, it feels like media noise and fan frustration rather than anything that coaches would actually consider. But hey, I've been wrong on Nick Martin already because I traded him out once, so I could be wrong again. But I don't see why they would move him out of the role.
Okay, well, you know what I'm like. I just check forums and stuff, and there's some that are praising him. There's some that are like, we need him up the ground. So that's, I can't afford to make another bad trade. But I'm bringing him in this week. But
the up the ground crew never have a solution for them what we do at halfback, one. And secondly, he played wing last year to an AAA level, and Scott still moved him out of that role to play him at half forward and then abandoned that to play him at half back. So why would he go back to either of those roles? It just, to me, that makes no sense. They were specifically recruited like Gresham and Dersma to fill those needs. So unless there's injuries that force a move, I just don't see why. And all that still comes back to, you take him out of halfback, who goes there? Who solves the problem? And no one can point to anyone. So I just don't see why he would move out of there. There's no better option.
Yeah, I was interested in your take. So it sounds like...
Sorry, getting a little bit frustrated. You've seen the Discord conversations. They have not gone well.
You can see, like, if I'm reading other stuff, that's why I'm asking. You've got a good read on Essendon. So, look, I'm bringing him in. I think it sounds like Brad Scott likes it. And to be honest, Nick Martin, like, they had the whole crew went to Amsterdam. He stayed and trained the whole time. Like, he's a bit of a baller, I think. So I think he'll improve in the role. Already we've seen improvement probably in the Port game. I think the Saints game, it's hard to read into because you know what they're like with defenders. The ball just spills there and they let defenders do what they want. But I think he's improving in the role. And the DT, I think he's D2 at the moment behind Sheasel.
Yeah. I honestly think he's one of the few guys in the team that cares and is willing to work hard for it. I get the same feeling that I got with Merritt way back in the day, that he actually cares and loves his footy and really wants to make a good crack of it and cares less about the fame and all that other stuff. So I don't know. I feel like he's the type of player that coaches would love and persist with rather than move him around because he's not putting in the work to improve or he's not coachable or anything like that.
Yep. Yeah. We'll move on.
So you probably wouldn't put him in with the top three, but he's probably not far off. So
I wouldn't be surprised if he moves up the order. He's averaging 34 a game.
Yeah, he's tied for most disposals per game at the moment with Sarong. So I'm trading him in this week. I'd have him in my top 6. And then I think after those 4 that we've mentioned, it does get harder for me. There's probably like 5 or 6 we could name. But just to throw a few out there, you've got like Hayden Young, who's had 2 back-to-back 130s-ish. You've got Wangan Miller, who's been a little bit up and down, but they clearly love the ball in his hands and has looked amazing doing so. Jordan Clark, who I think would have strung together another 110 game if it wasn't for the double clanger to finish off last week, which I don't know how many points he lost, but it must have been a crazy amount. And then Tom Stewart, who people are trading out this week, but he's got top 6 history over the last few years and doesn't make sense to, I think, bump him out of there despite maybe having a poor start to the year. Is there anyone else that I've missed? Oh, and then, of course, Lockie Whitfield, my boy. I think he could absolutely be up there. He's been on fire to start this year. They love the ball in his hand. Been doing great work out of halfback. Of course, the injury history is there, but I still think he's a really good option. So apart from those kind of 5 cheaper ones, is there anyone else that you guys are thinking about?
Not
Not really. Nah.
All right, good. So let me fire off some Discord questions. So from Mac and Heaney, a great combination name there. Is Nas going to be a top 6 defender? Either you confident on him being top 6 or you just have him there or thereabouts?
Well, so we have our top 4. I think that's consensus at the moment. 5th, you've got Stewart, who can go 110. He dropped, how many intercepts did he drop? Like 2 at the end, and then benched himself. He's basically 120 player in the past when things have gone right, but things have gone wrong with him. Hayden Young has had 6 games in the midfield, pure mid, apart from one where he tagged last year, played like partial mid, but 4 games at the back end. No, it'd be 3. No, sorry, it'd be 10 games in the midfield now. 10 games in the midfield. And I believe he's turned in, sorry, I can't do maths. He's had 8 games in the midfield and 6 of them 110 plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
6,
I've
1,
owned
10,
him for
5,
2
8.
of them, and they were 60s.
And the 2 we owned him for, he had
Yeah.
11 and 8 clangers, so he had 19 clangers and 6 frees against with no frees for.
He had a 62 against North.
yeah.
Like, that's just crazy.
So, what is he? Is he a 105? Is he 110?
100 to 105. I think there's
You
still
reckon?
going to be some down games from him. But he's one of those that just shown he can have ceiling games. So it's like, I just think if you'll see what you get to him week to week with his disposal. I think he's in the role. He's good for some tackles. That's what's good. He's, helps his floor there. Interesting point. I looked last year. He tagged Rosie in the home stretch against Port in that run. So coming off Rosie's career best game, what's happening there? I'm curious.
Essendon just made him a very big tag target. I think the other interesting thing there is that like Hayden Young's 2 best games were the last 2 games. And out of Sarong's 4 for the year, those were his 2 poorer games where he was getting more attention. So I do wonder in games where he's more freed up, how that changes, or if they have to, put Young to a defensive role. But I think he's like thereabouts. If he started and held, that's great. But I guess one of the questions here is from Sharon. So for a cheaper defender, how would you rank trading in like Nas, Young, Clark, or even like a Yo?
I'd probably put Clark to the side. Doing well for me in draft, but I wouldn't quite think he's going to sustain the whole year to be a worthy pick. I think I'd go even a Yo over him, honestly, a bit cheaper. And
Oh wow! Okay, yep.
Midfield upside, that type of thing. I think it's just deciding Nas or Young, and I'd probably say
I'm Hayden Young.
Yeah.
Nas
it's weird with Nas. He gets 35, but he still just barely turns up because it's a lot of uncontested. It's a lot of sideways, chip mark type of stuff. He's killing it in Dream Team, as George tells me every week. It's killing him because he's going so well in that format. But SuperCoach, I'm not sure. I mean, I owned him back into last year, and there were some real poor ones. Like I know he's another year older. He's only 21, mind you. Like he's still
yeah.
He's going to be probably in our defenses. I would guess for a lot of years to come. But would you go the midfield role still over him at this stage?
I can see Young doing 108. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think he can do that. I'm not sure Nas can do that just yet. With Sinclair and Bonner back there, but all 3
you're right.
are just
so
farming points at the moment.
I think if Bonner wasn't in the side, I'd probably have Nas over Young, but I probably make sense to back in the preseason research here. So I guess I'd go Young 1, Nas 2, and then Clark and Yo. I probably wouldn't trade in either of those.
I like Clark, but I'm not game enough to trade him in.
Yeah, okay. All right. And then last question here from In White Rooms. So is it worth upgrading a House type to one of these cheaper options? He's listed Nas here, but it could be Young or something like that. If that's all I can afford in terms of upgrades. So, if people are looking for an upgrade this week for a top person, these defenders at 500 are basically the cheapest you can get. There's no real forwards or mids that we'd be very confident in. So, yeah, would you be comfortable upgrading to a Nas or a Young who might be top 6 but might be outside, or should they kind of hold off and wait to start upgrading next week?
No,
I'd be
grab
fine with it.
Grab them.
Yeah.
Grab the
Unless
plan.
you had like 3 of them already, those type of defenders, then maybe you wouldn't get another one. But yeah, as long as you've got room to consolidate those 4 that we said, it'd probably be our top 4. You can grab one for sure.
And just for those that had the money, would you put Whitfield over Young or Nas?
No.
George's not going to say yes. I think he could score better than them, but there's obviously some other risk involved. I don't know.
Witt's 107 post-buy last year, so that's kind of what I'm expecting.
It's similar. Yeah, they're cheaper. Maybe you go them.
I think he can go above that, to be honest. I really like
He probably can for a stretch.
So I would, but I'm like insane Whitfield fanboy. Yeah, I think he could injure me. I'd like get injured, and I probably wouldn't even care that much. Even when the neck thing happened on the weekend, because I got him in other formats, I'm like, as long as he comes back on, he'll be fine. And he was fine. He salvaged a very good score.
Sprinting everywhere for the ball in the second half.
His ownership is so high in those formats. In SuperCoach, he's a pod. It's like Wines is a pod as well.
That's
Oh my
right.
god, I feel like quitting. No joke.
He's only 12% of teams. All right, but like Young and Nass are only 16%. So I mean, for me, I'd still have Whitfield first, and then I'm happy with either Nass or Young. And yeah, if they're the only ones you can upgrade to, I think that's all good this week. Should we move on to the mids?
Yep. So I think. Well, looking at my team, that's why. I think it looks good until it's really not. I've got like 4 of probably the top 4 mids we'd think they'd be, but it's put a big, massive handbrake on the rest of the squad. Do we still think Bond's number 1? Like, there's probably a few that could challenge him, but at this stage, we'd still probably have him number 1.
Yes.
Yeah. I think Bond number 1 still is the safest pick for the year, even though Green, Sarong, a couple others look like they could beat him. But yeah, Bond 1.
Yep. Who's his biggest challenger, George? I think I know who you might say.
Butters.
Oh, no, I'm surprised. I thought you were going to say top
He's
5
my 3.
mid.
Top 5. Merit,
So, Merit. Butters, Merit,
Butters,
Green,
Butters
Sarong.
has been managed the
have
past 2 games on the bench, and he's gone okay. I do wonder.
That's kind of a concern. They're like 4 blokes absolutely dominating week on week. And I guess a concern you could say, but there's a lot of them scoring points. Like I think I saw on Daniel Hoyne's thing, that champion data guy, Willem Drew's the 6th rated player in the comp through 4 weeks. Like
Crazy.
He's been elite.
So George, maybe like just list us off your top 6 or 8 or however many mids you've got locked in, and we'll build on that list.
Yeah.
I knew my top 7, I think, from like round 2 or 3. So Bond, Butters, Merit, Green, Sarong.
Strong list. Does
I'm
Steele
missing
get in there?
Petrarca.
Rao, Petrarca, Steele.
All right. So basically the top 8 by current average.
That's off the top of my head.
Yeah, they're the top 8 by current average.
I'm not quite sure where
I think
them.
Petrarca's tied with Neil and Horn Francis, but yeah, that's the top 8.
Petrarca's mid time's gone up from the back half of last year. I would put Petrarca top 4 ahead of Sarong.
I could see it.
I think these seasoned bodies in Merritt and Petrarca like a little bit more trustworthy for them to go really well. Like we've seen Green slow down, we've seen Sarong. Sarong will be fine, I think. He's clearly gone up a notch, but I can see Petrarca and Merritt 120 to 125 range this year.
They got a few more years under their belt.
Yeah. I can see Green and Sarong in the same bracket too, to be honest. So I can't really split them, but that's my 8.
All right. So let me ask them a few questions of ones that were previously top 8 or have been in other years. And like how confident that they won't get back to it. So Clayton Oliver.
Not interested at all.
Dawson and Laird.
No, I'm not touching Crow's mids. The only one, if you've got Crouch, you're happy for now. But I wouldn't touch a Crow's mid.
Goulden.
Yeah.
You can if he gets cheap and he's a nice price, I would consider him.
The problem is I guess the role, you're competing with 80% TOG, 80% CBA mids. It's pretty hard to beat them.
Took Miller?
No. Flanders moved out now.
When he had his worst game for the year, which is ironic, but
I think 2 could be top 12.
Yep. Okay. Libba.
Feel free to chime in as well, I know.
I don't disagree. I mean, Libba can be, but we know it. I don't think any of us have been interested in him.
No, not with his age. Did I say Neil already?
Same as Libba.
Same thing, yeah.
And Dunkley, I guess, like as the 2. So effectively, like, I guess there's going to be a couple of questions on this, especially around like thoughts on these fallen primos that we can get soon. So like Dawson, Oliver, LDU, Parrish has now got a very high break even. We spoke about some of these other guys. At what point do you go, look, I don't think they're going to be top 8, but I also know I probably can't pay $650K for every mid this year and complete a side quickly. So, which from this next tier am I going to be happy to upgrade to or target, or what price they have to be for me to really consider? Dawson, you may not think is top 8, but he's going to be 550k. If he puts up a 120 against Carlton, is that a sign that you go, oh, maybe we can jump on if he's got Essendon the week after?
I think Clary deserves a lot of discussion. I know George says he's not interested whatsoever just because of in his last 6 months, which is totally fair.
I mean, yeah, he had a soft tissue injury last year, so that's instantly off George's list.
It was the
he was in my
injury,
starting team before he was in my open team, and I was willing to forgive the soft tissue just because it's like literally been his only. He's had a few like shoulder niggles and whatever. It's like that's been his only issue.
3 games in a row of him looking.
What happened when you traded in Walsh last year with no preseason?
He did well.
He killed you. There's no way I'm picking someone with a limited preseason when we've got a bunch of mids that are probably going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if M8 is 118.
Yeah, okay. Which would be the highest M8 we've ever had.
Are we going to get them? I know there's a bit of catch.
That's a good question. So Jeremy Sharp. Oh wait, we don't have him.
Tom Brown.
Oh,
shit. Damn it.
Hall might come back. Never mind.
I think that's the point. Like, at what price range do you start going? I'm willing to take a 5-10 point per game premium discount on a top 8 just to get the upgrade done.
If I had to pick one, it would be 500k for Dawson.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't think he's going to get to 500. I think anything below 550 is a steal. Oliver this week.
550 with a high break even.
Dawson, yeah, but I'd be hoping that he turns around soon. I'd say
150 break even
and 150. I think Oliver's like 540 with a 150ish break even, and I imagine Davies Uniacke is like 564 with a 167 break even as well. So he's 67 rolls off after this week, so that's like another one that I think could be reasonably cheap.
Dawson averaged 113 in Dream Team last year for his 115 SuperCoach average. He's averaging 108 Dream Team this year for his 86 SuperCoach average. So look, he may not be 115 plus, but if you buy him for 520, 530 and he does 108, 110, are you happy with that?
If he does 110 for 500, I'd be stoked with that. 520k.
Yeah. So I think for me,
that's the question. People think, I need all these top 8 mids that are all doing, 120. And
well, you do if you want to win.
Well, you do, but you can't.
How can you win and you not have these top 8 mids? They're going to be too high.
No one wins with them all. Like, I'm telling you, no one ever wins with them all unless we have the best rookie crop in SuperCoach history and we're able to get them all. Yep. The person who wins times it well, right? And they get them all in at the right time when they've, they start the right ones, and the ones they don't start drop it good.
For me, right? Like you're saying, like Rao, for example, was in your top 8, which I'm fine with. He's looked very good to start the year. But if I can get Dawson, Oliver, LDU sub 550, and maybe Oliver's the one that I wouldn't point to as much in that, or pay 650 for Rao, I'm going to take one of those other guys for sub 550. So I think 550 is about
600 plus all year. I'll tell you, I'm never going to own him.
Yeah. So I think to answer that question, if they're 550k and they've shown some form, you've seen something change, not just a random spike game, but something actually changes. So for example, the Crom changed their midfield structure this week and it works really well and Dawson looks better in it. Like, okay, that's a really positive sign. If LDU, who I think's been ball watching a bit, is actually just hunting relentlessly like we saw last year, good sign. I might be happy to jump on. If Oliver's able to run out games and looks like his old self post-bye, then I think you can jump on. I wouldn't jump on these guys after just one good score unless the underlying problem has also changed. But yeah. All right, cool. And then the only other question I had for the mids, maybe before we moved on, was from E. So how high important is it bringing in Horn Francis this week? And I think we already touched on this earlier, but I think it's not important at all or potentially detrimental. If he was going to get forward status and we knew that locked in, he'd probably be one of the top picks this week just because he's 400k. We're desperate for forward keepers. But as a midfield only coming off the soft tissue injury, I'm not as keen. His two scores this year have been against West Coast and Essendon side that played dead for 3/4. And in that second game, there was no Wines either to take any points off him. So for me, I think he will well and truly outperform what he's priced at. Might make you 50 to 80K, but it's not the type of pick I'm looking at this time of the year.
Might make more, honestly, in the short term, if he keeps pumping them out. But
he just needs another big score, and he could well and truly pump past that, I guess.
this is someone you'll probably have to trade out again because he's not getting DPP. So, yeah, no, you nailed it all. Anything else? Nope.
Nope.
Cool. All right. Now it's time for...
This is what we've been waiting for.
I should have got an audio clip,
Well,
damn it. Start rapping for me, George. The Ruck line.
Oh,
Meek,
God.
Millie.
Meek Mill.
Yeah. Look, Gorn, obviously, everyone started this year, and besides me and maybe a couple others who were reeling from that decision. But I think Josh, Big Seven, changed that after round 2. He said, Grundy, I've had enough, straight to Gorn, and I wish I'd didn't because I waited 2 more weeks to do that. But right, everyone who still owns Grundy now is most likely looking at trading him out. I know I've select a few might hold him, and Meek actually can play a part in this because some people might go Jordan to Meek, for instance, and keep Grundy and have sort of the Ruck cover across the next two buys with Gorn and Grundy missing one after the other. But where do they all go? We looked at the trade-ins, and Meek was actually the highest of all these Rucks out of him. Rowan Marshall, English. Do we want to talk about where we think the Rucks are ranked? It's probably be pretty short, and then talk about what we like with these trades and answer some questions.
Yeah,
I guess
actually,
number 2. Or go JD.
Actually, no. Let's start with the rankings of who are the top 3 Rucks and what order you have them in, and then I think the Meek question we can kind of answer with maybe some questions we've got here because after seeing George play around with it, definitely is a hot topic this week. He's led the locals astray. So yeah, in terms of Gorn, English, Marshall, who do you have as 1, 2, and 3 for Rucks this year?
Gorn 1.
Yep. Hard
Meek
to say
2.
otherwise on exposed form.
The Gorn 1. I'm confused on English versus Marshall because surely Marshall's are 2 if English is going to give away 40% Ruck split most weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he got a bit more Ruck split this week because they benched Darcy for the whole game for some reason. Now, whether that continues, I don't know. And also, English has had the easiest run of all time the past 3 weeks. Second tier Rucks every week. And did he play Stanley this week? I think he did.
Stanley and Blitzer.
Anyway.
Yep.
I'm going to say Rowan R2 because of the Ruck split and the post-buy Marvel run is illegal. 8 out of 9 games at Marvel. Who scheduled that? Like Nick
So they have it every year.
scheduling.
I'll quickly tell you, George, Rowan's split was 65-35 this week, but that was because of the famous Norwood ground where Ross's instructions just would have been, I think Camo took every single forward 50 Ruck contest. So I just had Rowan sitting behind the ball. Nank was doing the exact same thing for us, and Nank took more clunks than Rowan, but they were both just intercept. I mean, Norwood, let's leave it at that. I get some voice whenever I hear Norwood in the back of my head. I get it out.
I think Norwood gets about 100 mentions a day in the Discord, but any concern with the comments of Rowan looked pretty cooked? We might look at Campbell at some point. Any concern with that?
When that came out, I had to watch the clip, and Ross, I'm trying to read the man, but I feel like he's trolling me. He did say it last year, right? So people have brought that up. He said the exact same thing last year, JD, and Rowan played 23, and we never saw Tommy Campbell's grey hairs once. So he looked cooked, Rowan, but he scored 95 Dream Team in the second half, so he couldn't have been that cooked.
Yeah, and he played well to the end of the game, and he's been full-time rucking for a year and managed the load last year. So
is it like Ross putting a rocket up him, maybe, just because he was a bit upset with Nank taking all these clunks or something? I don't know.
But like,
'Cause they're both
I
cooks.
don't
They both
think
played
so.
well. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think the other thing as well is right. You got to remember that he has to hold his own as a forward, and the Saints forwards I think have been playing well enough for them not to replace one of them with Campbell. Like the additional benefit they
Oh,
get
you wouldn't. Yeah.
of getting So I think it's less likely rather than more likely that happens. And I reckon even if they do it, Ross does it probably for exactly one game and then bumps him back out when it doesn't work. So I'm not too worried. As others mentioned, this was talked about last year and didn't really eventuate. The thing that is scarier for me is what we flagged in the preseason with English, which is them talking about giving or like splitting more of his ruck time. And they've actually followed through on that with half the game so far. So I think that does, reduce where he's at last year. I probably still think English will probably
Rowan just.
outscore
Yeah.
Marshall by a bit, but maybe not enough to justify the difference in price this week. And a lot of people need to move on this week. And so I think that comes into this question here from DSM. So would you rather have like Marshall plus like a primo mid next week, English this week, or Meek plus lots of cash? Essentially, you could have Marshall and have an extra 90K for another upgrade next week, or you could go down to Meek for the high cash option. How are you guys thinking through these as options this week? And Enno, are you trading Grundy this week to one of these guys?
No, well, I did it last week. Obviously, I wish I'd never started him, of course, but no, I just jumped off last week. I had enough. Needed Gorn, of course, and already have Rowan, so I think I'm at the combo that I want. English
Yep.
is really so. Look, at maybe at one stage, something happens to one of these two boys, and English is a bit cheaper, and I have to make a trade there. But hopefully not. I think English just maybe a little bit. And when I say capped, he's still probably going to average around 120, but not closer to 130 like he was last year. It might just take the top off him a little bit. I mean, he only had 80 Dream Team the week just gone, and I looked at how he still scored, close to 120. He had 19 hit outs to advantage. So Bont and Libba helped him a lot in there against the Cats mids. That's the thing. You got to think with English, if he just gets up there and wins the tap, Bont and Libba do the rest, and he gets the hit out to advantage as long as they win it from the hit out. So I think he's gonna maybe go around 120 this year, and Rowan 115 plus. Can he push towards 120? Probably not, but obviously I'm hopeful. And as you said, is the 100K difference worth it? I don't think so.
Would you go Meek if you had gone Grundy this week?
I honestly think I might, George, if I didn't jump off Grundy last week. But I had Marshall, so I'd be going Marshall Meek. So, mate, I'd be in some sort of boat that no one would be in.
No, so for those that missed that, if you've got Gorn and Grundy, you can move, say, your loophole like a Livingston into the forward line, get Meek at R3, and have Meek basically cover both Gorn and Grundy for the next 2 weeks, get some cash gen out of him, and then move him on. So it's a pretty, somewhat risky or aggressive strategy, because then you've got 2 rucks that you now need to trade out eventually in terms of Grundy and Meek, but it does give you cover through all 3 weeks and gives you some upside. And I'm in the boat where I came into the week with Gorn and Grundy, so I could be looking at this as an option, George. I've found for me, though, it doesn't actually help my trades to do that. Because I came into the week with 160 or 70K, moving down to him actually doesn't really help. So I'm probably not in a position to assess that. I think it's something that you're looking at.
Yes, straight in my team.
For Grundy or alongside Grundy and Gorn?
No, Grundy's gone. I'm not having 500K sit there. So I don't really think I should be convincing people on this. It's a high... Is it a high risk? I think it's moderate risk because he's going to make money regardless. Negative 14 break even. You got to put... I mean, if you're Sam Mitchell, are you bringing Reeves in?
No.
I think this clearance numbers, which was their biggest problem early on. Newcomb wasn't playing well. Barely any of their mids were. Completely flipped with Meek on the weekend, and they won the clearances and centre bounce, stuff like that. So he was pretty good. He was following up well, and from looking at the DFS site, JD, Pie's one of the harder ruck matchups in the whole league over the last 5-10 games. So he did well. Would I go there this week, like just before upgrade season? You've got like you're essentially booking in another trade in your ruck line, George, that you never know when it will have to be done. Could be 3 weeks, could be 6 weeks. If you're at a boost by 6 weeks' time, does it stuff you up? I'm not sure.
Only if
but
it
I think
goes
it's
wrong.
definitely correct. But I still think, there's enough upside there. I think that
So
the risk is
yeah,
fine.
he's priced at 64.
He'll
I'm expecting him to
kill
put
that.
30 on that minimum.
25 minimum, 30. Yeah, definitely.
It's
really
just the
relevant.
timing of the whole thing. It's Grundy has to go, and we
Mm.
either pay big dollars for Ruck, which would be nice, but that
You're just going
slows our
nowhere,
ability
right?
to get
Yeah.
rookies off the field when we have an option like Meek.
Yep.
So that 250k I can put on the head of D'Ambrosio, and I can get a Nast or a Young there.
And as long as Meek
So
goes
if
90
I'm losing
something,
20, 30 points in the Ruck, I'm probably getting 50 points in defense.
Yep.
Hopefully that makes sense. That's why I'm doing it.
An
extra trade down the track though. So yeah.
I can definitely see how people could do like Grundy down to Meek and then use the money to get another upgrade done this week, and it makes a lot of sense for them. And I think if I'm going to like try and talk about this pick positively, we've seen in the past almost every year it happens where there's a ruck option that ends up making a ton of money for owners that take the risk, and Meek is the first one that stands out this year in terms of a downgrade target. I do worry a little bit with like the matchups he's got coming up in terms of like it's Wits, Cherry, Grundy, English, Marshall. Like there's a handful of very good rucks in there. So how he survives against those, I think, will be interesting to see. But yeah, if he puts a couple of 90s in back to back from here, then you could see him very easily make 100K,
100K,
or more,
yep.
even 150K. So yeah, but you are then booking
Still gonna have to probably spend money on top of him as well, right?
eventually, to upgrade him at some point.
Maybe I'll just keep him.
Maybe you just keep him. Maybe
if you keep him and it's viable to do so, then where are we going at the end of the season, Shorts? What country? Because that would be cooked.
But are you concerned that he drops like a 60 against Wits this week, and then you're like,
No,
what do I do with this pick?
because
No?
he's negative 14. This is not a short-term play, the medium-term play at least. And I understand things can go wrong. Sam Mitchell can do terrorist things in the ruck, but I'm going to back him in to perform. We thought he was a good ruck. Well, I don't know about you guys. I thought he was a good ruck at Freo.
Yeah. Yep, me too.
I think we wanted to even bring him in when Darcy went down if we had a
Yeah, he used
decent
to have
time
come
on
into
him.
Shrek back then. Yeah.
Yeah,
sure.
So look, he ticks a few boxes for me in terms of work rate's exceptional. Got to contest really well. Big body in there. Hit out stats are pretty good, although it's 2 games and one was against Conway. So how much you want to read into that, I don't know. But the stats are good so far. Cheap, negative break even. We'll see team sheets this week. Most likely, looks like Sam Mitchell's just playing the one ruck with Lewis and Chol. Well, they got Chol now, and Chol can chop out in the ruck. So maybe that's the reason why they're going one ruck. So viable forward options: Lewis, Chol, Ramsden comes in. I feel like that's their structure. I don't know how they play too.
Yeah.
All
right.
Just got to back him in to perform and hope for the upside is it works out. If it doesn't work out, it is what it is.
I've got 2 more questions then to finish out the rucks, and we can move on to the cursed forward line as well as some of the rookies. So from Sinclair is gorgeous. I could go Meek and Flanders using a boost, and I'd still have 3 left for the future. Or I could get Marshall without using a boost. And I think this adds another element to that question that we were talking about, which is you can free up that Meek money and do an upgrade. But it would require a boost versus just going straight up to a Marshall. So, George, where are you at with that one?
Meek and Flanders. Flanders going up. Meek's going up. Rowan's probably staying the same price.
I think Marshall goes up moderately, but there is more value in the Meek and Flanders option for sure. And then from Pav, how close to the top 2 rucks do we think Marshall is from here in terms of points per game from now till the end of the season? I probably worded that really poorly, but I'd be surprised if he was more than 5 points per game behind whoever ends up as R2 from here to the end of the year.
Yeah, I think he's close enough to be a good option. Yeah.
And there's a chance that he actually is R1 or 2.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Shall we talk some forward primos quickly? This is obviously the toughest line. We're slowly getting more information to shape who looks like they could be a top forward, but it doesn't look like DPP is going to be our savior this year. So I'm going to throw out my list so far of who I think looks top 5 to 6, and we'll go in confident. So I think top 2, extremely confident, is Heaney and Flanders. Heaney's obviously looked amazing to start the year, and I think, even though you've got Parker coming back, it shouldn't affect him enough that he drops out of the top 6. And Flanders has shown that he can score well in 2 roles now. So wherever he ends up, I'm pretty confident that he's going to be up there alongside them. I think the next one has to be Luke Jackson, because even with Shrek coming back, he's going to lose that role. But he's looked good as a marking target around the ground anyway, and he'll still get enough ruck time that I think he can improve on last year's average and end up, around the 100 mark or just below, which should be good enough for top 6. And then I think we'd be remiss not to have a look at Dane Zorko. So even though you've got McKenna coming back in potentially a week that could disrupt things at half-back, they've looked better with him being there to help distribute and rebound out of defence. I don't think Wilmot and McKenna can do it alone without him, with no Coleman back there and no Rich available now that he's retired. So I think Zorko is probably a pretty good chance for top 6 if he keeps that role. And then Tom Powell, I think, has done enough to convince us that he'll be there and thereabouts. So those would be my top 5. And then I think for the 6th, we're looking at your favorite inform key forward or medium forward option that gets hot with the right
Flavor of the
fixture.
week.
But if I was to pick one to go for the season from here, I think I'd have to say Shea. It's Shea, right? Shea Bolton. It's not Shai.
Shea.
Yeah, Shea.
I think you're saying key forward.
No, yeah. Anyway, so Shea would have to be the one that I'd pick from here, for like season-long format. If you had to go on one now, just doing the heavy lifting at the Tigers and is getting it done week in, week out. And I think you were telling us beforehand that Uze was saying that he really probably should try and find some more mid-time for Bolton, which should help with consistency in his scoring as well. So it's not one that I would jump on now, but if I had to pick a top 6, he's number 6.
Yeah, it'd be cute. I mean, they have West Coast this week, or we do, and he has a 50 break even. So if he didn't have the bye the following week, it'd be an interesting option. Probably still wouldn't go there just as yet, but he's probably someone you can get cheap at some point. He does love an 8 clanger game, drop a 60, drop a 70, and you'll probably get him below 500 again. So we could figure that out post probably the second lot of buys. That's probably when I'm looking at finishing off the forward line. Who cares? Who cares what it is until then? I can't really dispute any of that, JD. Like, if I was to pick, this is a fun game, pick a key forward that would average the most, it probably is Harry Mackay because of the ruck time.
I think I would still back Hogan from here, even though he's going to be inconsistent.
Just kick some more bags.
Yeah, GWS looks good, and they're getting to him, and Hogan's looked in great
And he's the
form,
main target.
Yeah, he's just going to have some 180 games, I think, this year. So, but yeah, I mean, this is like picking numbers out of the hat on Cup Day and hoping your horse gets up, right? Like, that's what it feels like we're doing with these key forwards. George, is there anyone that comes to mind for you? I know, like Baker looked very good up until his suspension. You had like Rankin, who could potentially get more mid-time in a midfield shuffle. Anyone? Lukosius, who's been moved down back. He's 400k, so quite cheap. As well. Anyone else that you like as a potential top 6?
Yes. So just on Lukosius, he said he wants to play forward when they interviewed him pre-game. I think that's well known, but I don't know if that role sticks. I feel like one injury and he's back forward. But I think he'll take kick-ins, probably average like 90 back there. Riley Sanders, if he can get proper time on ground, I think he can do 90.
Yep.
If he gets injured,
if he gets forward DPP, and I think he's another one that's right on knife's edge. So if Bevo has another game like last week where he plays in majority midfield and gives very little forward time, he's going to miss it. So yes, holding with bated breath as to whether or not he can become a DPP for us.
Yep. And Charlie Comben, I'm intrigued to see what he can do.
The combination lock.
Intercept machine, that bloke.
You're getting
Taking
this week,
heaps
aren't
of
you?
marks. Stack of marks in the VFL. I think 20 in 2 games.
Yeah.
So I'm
Just
kind of interested to see how he goes.
Just
But no
another
kickings.
version of George's bias showing, hates on Nat Fife, injury history, and then Combin pops up, and all of a sudden, injury history doesn't matter. I can
Hang on.
intercept. He's
You
a
know
tall bloke.
the rule. It's soft tissue or forgive. Unless you
Yeah, I
like
think
to
a lot of
want-
commons are freak accidents, right?
He's
Like broken leg and
fibula, broken ankle.
Yeah.
He just keeps breaking stuff.
which it probably could happen again if he's flying for every intercept mark. But no,
Probably.
hopefully not. Hopefully not. Yeah, he's not going to be near the top 6, but he can definitely do sort of best case scenario 80 something.
If
He's
we sort
top
by
of it.
average, is he top 6? Is that
He's like
is that
number
how
1.
this is? Yeah,
It's one game.
I feel like George's list just sort by average and read out the first names he sees. What is this?
I will shout out the Nibbler. I know someone will appreciate that. One of our viewers who asks every week, and maybe now that I've mentioned him, he
haven't
won't
heard
ever
from him
ask
in a
again.
while.
So
Who is the nibbler?
Neil
Neil
Bullen.
Bullen.
Oh,
You
jeez.
don't have to scroll far, JD. He's only a couple rungs.
Yeah,
below.
no. Well, he was all the rage a couple weeks ago. I'm surprised we haven't talked about Messi 2.0, new and improved either.
Messi and who did he get this week? Mahomes. He's just
Oh yeah,
cooking that guy.
Mahomes. That's right. He's got the vision. He's eyeing him off. He's throwing him off with his vision. That's right. And Sheasel should be playing the grind Myers role. Myers is
Yes.
all the
Yeah.
rage. Yeah. Wow. He is really this week's nibbler, to use the cool kids lingo for these players. All right. Shall we move on to some rookies and some downgrade targets that we could potentially be eyeing off, either to facilitate trades this week or to get us kicked off into upgrade season next week?
Yes. So the thing really is there's no real bubble boys on, this particular week. So it's really looking ahead and
Meek.
very frustrating. And okay, shut up. That Tommy Brown was last week. But I just hate that timing. Probably would have easily grabbed him this week, but 200k now. I know George will still have him on the list, but I still don't think I would go there after a price rise. There's these random compilation videos popping up of his kicks and stuff. Like, it's hilarious. I am loving it, but he does look a player. I just wouldn't be getting him in for 200k. But I think he should play. Like, he shouldn't be spot shouldn't be threatened, which is what I was maybe iffy on. Like, if Grimes comes in, it shouldn't be for him. It should be for like Miller or something. If that's the way they want to go, he has to play. But he's already risen. So on the horizon for next week really is a few guys. Closey, everyone's trading in this week. Bit of a taller winger, right? Like, he took some nice grabs
did, yep.
on the wing, played really well. So I think everyone is seemingly confident that he's, job security's fine. The only risk is obviously injury going early, but I think he's the one I would go out of him and Graham, who got the 4th mid roll, which was, I guess, surprising to some, but maybe not to people who know the Suns. He's apparently had a really big preseason, and Dimmers, 3 weeks in, hasn't been afraid to swing the axe and give him that role and move Flanders back. So provided that holds, I think I want one more look at it. He should be coming into most of our teams next week.
Dimmer's made more changes in 3 weeks than the Crows have made in 4 years.
They've got a lot of talent there at his disposal, to be fair. Like, they do get quite a bit up there. What's Nick's got to roll with in the twos that should be getting a go?
I don't know.
Harry Schoenberg.
He's coming back.
Billy
apparently.
Dowlings is the chat this week, isn't it?
He's the one, right? Yeah, who we might
Hopefully.
be looking at.
Another one-pace mid, exactly what the Crows needed. Let's get going.
He can play a bit more outside, though, so he might have a bit of a point of difference.
That wasn't an invitation to talk about the Crows.
Any thoughts on those guys, boys, or we move on to... I know, George, you're really keen on Kyle Lohman, but you can't, I don't think...
I wouldn't say keen. Not keen.
He played really well, but...
He looked good in the preseason. He's... I don't know. Electric is the word I would describe him as.
Yeah, he looks like a really good player, but he's clearly still fringe in that side. It's very hard to trust.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a run of full games.
Yeah, I know DR put out a video on him tonight covering him. Have either of you watched it? What was DR?
Yeah, he said no.
Okay, well, there you go.
He said he's not bringing him in.
Yep. I mean, I think at his price and just given the sub risk, that was always where I was going to. So, there's going to be a
about
few.
Combin properly. Or do you does George
I
wanna-
wouldn't go this week. I think that's one
No.
that you wait another week, and if he puts up another big score, then I'm happy to jump on.
The one you'd happy doing is Closey, right? 102k defender. Looks like he
Leads
played
into
well
our-
enough to get.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a question.
It leads into our first question from Slats here. Anno, the great transition. So how do you feel on going early on Combin versus Graham? So I think nested within this question is that we're all pretty confident that Closey you can go in on first. If you want to go early on someone, tick it off. I'm pretty confident based on what I saw, who they dropped. Like, I don't think they're busting to get Ellis
Rory
back.
Atkins
And,
in or,
yeah, exactly. And Closey's done it, like played basically the wing role better than any Gold Coast player so far this year. So I think he's earned a couple more weeks at least. So then if you did have to go early on someone else, Combin, Graham, or even, these other options like Brown or Lohman that we've talked about, how would you kind of rate those?
I think George sits in the Combin camp if you're going early.
I'm not sure I will. It just depends because I figure I want to get rid of Howes this week because I figure he's got 2 horrific scores in his system and he might drop money based on his role and break even in the 50. So I'm thinking Howes to Closey. Just a lot of people have a lot of deadwood done back that Closey sort of fixes. Who will score more? Well, when I did a video yesterday, Combin should score more. Closey is safer because one, he's cheaper and that's about it, really. Some people might not want to pay 220k for a downgrade. So Closey's safer. Who should score more? Well, it probably should be Combin. The role was better. Winger versus intercept marker. I mean, take the intercept marker. So that's what I was thinking. Like maybe everyone goes Closey, you go Combin. Maybe you get points. No guarantee. A bit like last week, I was like, oh, I'll go Whitfield instead of going down to Tom Brown. And of course, he gets outscored by Tom Brown, thinking I'd get an extra 50 points. But that's my logic. Safer with Closey, more upside with Combin. That's however you want to play or plan out your trades.
Yep. I think JD, Closey's the only one I would actually have any confidence going in early, and the other two I want to see. Like Combin more so just has to back it up for me to eat. Like looking at what happened to Mass, happened to Billings, I just want to see another good game and then probably get baited. But the role is good. Better. I know. And then with Graham, I just don't know. One game in the 4th mid roll that could easily change.
Yeah.
So he's got to be weighted on, I think.
Yeah, for me, going early really comes down to, I think, job security. Like, you have to be very confident they're still going to be there. Otherwise, you should have just waited the extra week to look at the bubble. And I think while I know Graham's a good player, there's probably enough uncertainty for me that he's there in 2 weeks' time, where Combin's already shown to be the best North defender they have as a tall in one game this year. So if I had to go early, it'd be on Combin over Graham. I'd rather go early on neither, though.
Yes.
And then just on a trade out question here from DSJ Mavs, is it worth getting rid of a dead rookie such as Hoare or cashing in on Howes? I don't really have any other dead rookies such as Reed or Caulfield. So I'm guessing it's a situation where you've got Howes D7, Hoare D8, or like a Reed or a Caulfield D8. Would you, cash in on Howes or would you fix the dead rookie?
I'm cashing in Howes because I almost classify him as a dead rookie.
And he's got more cash than he said.
Because when Salem, his scoring has gone to nothing since Salem moved back. I don't know if that continues. I can't answer that. But if it does, he's going to lose money. And he has to buy next week. And he has 2 horrific scores in his system. So that's why I'm getting rid of Howes. I mean, sure, it'd be nice to have a playing person at D7, but I think that money will be nice for your upgrade over Hoare.
I'll probably want to give him the one more week, Housey, because
you think he can kickstart his cash gen?
Well, that's that's what you get to see, right? And then if not, he goes next week anyway. That's sort of where I sit. I would hate to trade him out. He scores a 70 and his break even's 5 next week, and whilst he has the buy, you can get another 50k out of him post buy. But I do understand if it accelerates upgrades, then sure, go for it. But I think we have other rookies in our teams that aren't too much different in price, like a Carroll if you have him, or Clark after he makes another 10k, or Wilson. That unless you're like really tight on the trade you want to do next week, like the upgrade, I'd maybe just keep House for one more week and see how he goes Thursday night. But it's team dependent, of course. Like if you need, I'd be tempted for that guy JD to clean up his other dead rookie, and he's probably looking at the best bench out of all of us. I've still got 2 of them, so.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be many people that have a completely clean bench, which would be a pretty fortunate position. I think the tough part is that his matchups are somewhat nice, but it's pretty tricky because if you commit to holding him now, even if he scores, say, like a 60 and he resets his break even to like a 20 the following week, you've basically got to play him or like hold him round 5, then he has the bye, and then he comes and plays in round 7 to get that little bit of extra cash, like a 20k bump.
Yeah.
So you're waiting 3 weeks to get one small price bump out of him. So I almost think that the getting access to the money to do an upgrade earlier is probably worthwhile going after. So yeah,
it's hard without the team, right? Like if his team,
without the rest of it, I think that you could justify it either way. You justify it either way.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you two wanted to touch on for rookies? Otherwise, I've got a few more miscellaneous questions around like strategy or picks just to finish us off.
Ramsden we didn't mention, but I think we did at the
like
start with the injury news. Yeah, it looks good, but it's just tough with the Lewis news, right? 1 to 2.
For sure.
If he doesn't play this week, you don't hopefully the week after, but I still wouldn't be because, maybe he stays in with Lewis and then you could think about it, but I'm not sure how that setup would be. So
they'd have to drop 2 phones, right?
Chol, yeah. So, which is a possibility, maybe, if they want to give games to Ramsden. So probably not. And then is there anyone else? Don't want to miss anyone, just in case. Don't think so. Maybe we get Carl Warner back. He's a test, right? So.
Yep. No, I think he came back and played VFL last week, but I don't know how he did.
Actually, no, I think I read something on the injury list. It said test, like him and someone else is a test.
I'm not even sure the waffle started yet.
Oh, there you
Warner
go.
and Jones had very low level symptoms as they get close to completing concussion protocol. So yeah, I think he's pretty bad concussion, I guess then.
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks.
Nothing else.
All right, cool. So questions here then. So from Freddie, is it worth holding on to fallen primos or falling primos like Stu, LDU, and he says or other, but I guess like Dawson's probably the other one that I've seen a few questions about. To me, they're already at the point now. I mean, Daycross is the other one actually falls in this boat. To me, they're already at the point where they're getting close to the bottom of their score. There's not really any more money to lose on these guys. So I don't see a reason to trade them out. How do you two feel about that?
Yeah, don't trade.
Yeah,
Stewart, I think,
now.
especially. Like Stewart, still pretty confident. We'll be around 6 to 8 top defender. LDU such a weird one. I haven't watched him close enough this year to know what's going on there.
We've got this week Geelong.
I judge them all individually, right?
Yeah.
Like
You're better off upgrading around them.
Oh, you are. Yeah. But if there's an inherent problem, right, you can get caught in the trap of keeping someone who's just not going to turn it around and dropping.
I still think you hold on to them until their mid-season buy, and then flip them at that point to, upgrade. Like I just hold on to them as long as they're fit and playing.
They're all good enough players. They should have some good games at some point.
All right. Bogues asks a good question. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. It could be like Boget. It could be a little bit fancy. I've never.
I doubt it's that.
Yeah. No, how he talks is probably not. Probably more like Bogan or short for Bogan. So Bogues, let's go with that. What strategy do you guys use in terms of selecting which rookies to field to win Rookie Roulette? Obviously, a bit of luck is involved, but you're mostly looking at are you mostly looking at their recent scoring or their defense versus position, or is it a complete vibe pick? So, Enno, do you want to kick us off? How do you think about fielding rookies, and how have you gone with it this year? Like, have you been on the good side or the bad side of Rookie Roulette?
I think mostly the good. Look, best 18's helped, right? We had a few of those loop opportunities.
Mm.
In the past, I've gotten pretty lucky with it. Started a nickname, Captain Luck. I think I got Nick Martin's ton his first career game. But this year, not as good. Miss Harley. I think we all missed Harley Reid last week, right? But there's if you try to use reasoning, which we did, he's had low tog. He's been, whatever, and then he shoots out the week against Sydney and plays 85 tog, was it? And bit of forward time early, but then bulk mid time after that and kills it. Then you get punished because we just thought Carroll might have one last week in the guts, which he did, but we lost points. So I always look at roll, but again, it's predicting these young players very early into their career most of the time. How they're going to perform, and that's just totally unpredictable. So I always look towards roll, and then after that, you just have to have a gut feel, don't you? Like
roll and match up.
You can look to match up, but Harley Reid just put 90 on Sydney. He's number one pick, so don't get me wrong.
That's why I hate DFS. It's too hard to pick what happens in one game.
I don't like matchup. Yeah, it's like West Coast perform well, and George score less this week against Richmond. Who knows?
Anything extra that you do, George?
No, roll match up.
Yeah,
hope for the best.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
There's no secret sauce.
For this year for SuperCoach, I lost well over 100 points round one, and then I think the only other real one that I've missed is not having Reid on field the week just gone over someone like a Carroll or a McKercher, but we've never fielded him over McKercher. Otherwise, I feel like I've been good. And in fantasy, I've had almost no blunders this year at all, which is interesting because I think there is actually something to do with just SuperCoach scoring being so spiky that makes rookie roulette even harder than in fantasy. And in fantasy, all you're using is, I think for the most part, I'm looking at what they've averaged so far and then defense first position. And usually the combination of those two, I find a really good gauge of who you should be and shouldn't be putting on field. And then maybe someone could have said Reid was getting a lot of attention last week and it was back to his home ground. And that's where the vibe element, you could spin a story for that. But I think in SuperCoach, I would have struggled to ever have put Sharp on field last week if I had him over some of these other guys. I mean, maybe if I had him instead of Carroll, I would have. But yeah, I think that's the tricky part. You are just going to miss some of these guys, and that's the luck element. But what they've averaged, defense first position, and if there's any other player movements happening that could affect them, we probably should have paid more attention to McKercher moving into the mids, for example. But yeah, otherwise, that's about it. The one other thing I'll just point out as well is, and what's unique about this year is the best 18. So one little trick here, obviously you've got loopholes, especially this week where we've got Roberts and Heaney and Dacos for those that own all out. Putting guys that have higher ceilings on, I think, is the best way to get out of it. So, for example, someone like a Darcy, very high ceiling, I'm trying to find ways to either field or loop him, because if he drops a 20, he's not going to be my best 18. So what? But he's the type that could put up a ton this week. Dempsey's the type that could put up a ton this week. So, trying to find ways to loop on those guys, I think, is probably the best approach to win rookie roulette in best 18 weeks. You're not going to fielding Jai Clark, for example, the matchup's good this week, but that's a type of pick that doesn't excite me. Actually, Carroll's a really good example because I think he probably gives us another 65, 70, and that's an okay score, but it's probably going to be bottom four for me. So finding guys like Darcy that can have upside are the ones I'd try and get on the field, or Reid, who has upside, I'd try and field those guys over someone that's just going to give me a flat 60, 65.
Yep. I think most people should have a loop on each line this week, right? Dacos, yep. Roberts, Heaney. So make sure you look at all that. That's how you're going to get the best out of it, and see how your week's going, right, JD? And if you have a few lower scores or whatever, depends on what you take, right? I know the other week, what was it? We didn't take, or you didn't take the Z-Wheel 70, and it turned out wrong.
Oh, yeah. It was wrong by 5 points, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't take a 70, I lost 5 points, or 8 points.
And there's upside to get 30.
Of 30, yeah. So yeah. I'm happy to take those risks for sure.
Yeah.
By the way, it looked like we just lost George. I mean, for those that are listening and not watching, Oh, did he? It looked
Power
like it was like a
surge.
horror film because everything just went
It's
black
still
and it's just
shot. Oh,
sitting
that would
there.
be
Yeah,
funny.
still shot. He must. Yeah. And I was like, oh no, what's happening?
That would be good on the
All right,
YouTube.
so we'll finish up on the last question then from Lipper Lover. So looking for a mid or defender primo for under 600k. Who would you pick between Whitfield, Steele, and Martin? Whitfield would mean 22 on field this week, with the other two leaving to field 21. And this is a question I did want to bring in this week because we haven't actually spoken much about the value of fielding, like 20 versus 21 versus 22 in these early rounds, because it's been pretty easy for people to do that. But coming into next week in particular, where a lot of people are going to have gone off and no ruck cover, it will mean fielding 21. So I wanted to kind of dig into this of, would you change your trades to go from fielding 21 to 22 either this week or next week, or would you just pick the best guy available?
If the 22nd person is like Darcy Wilson, I wouldn't care. Get the best premium. Like, it should barely affect you at all. If it's Riley Sanders or even a Darcy who could pop off, I think he should be on your field anyway. It just depends, right? So, yeah, if it's a rookie that you're not really confident in, is only averaging 50 or something, you can probably get that out of someone else and say you lose 10 points or something off of your bottom score, whatever. If you're getting the better premium, that's what I would prioritize. So I don't think I'd be stressed too much about that.
So if you're not stressed about that, that really does wipe out Whitfield as an option because he was the path to 22, and you're just then comparing Steele versus Nick Martin. If you got a preference.
Anyway, that's what I'm doing this week, really, JD. I think Nick Martin is the logical choice. Head says that, heart says Jack Steele. It allows you, especially for me, 3 premium defenders. I don't know how many people are in the same boat, but it doesn't look as good. And getting out of early buys, I do not want a rookie on field that's not, like Zach Williams D6 is at most I would want, and maybe even not more either. So, Martin being able to go back there, it's a bit cheaper than Steele. He has upside, as we've said. We think he's like a top 6 defender in this role, at least.
Yep.
At least we'll just say that. Could be higher. So I think it's him. Jack Steele is just very frustrating, though, as someone that I would wanted to start so badly. Not so badly, I would say. Sorry, I was very and ahhing, and got caught on the wrong side in the end. He's still very affordable. Like, he could still. Do you believe he's top 8 to 10? That's probably a big question, right?
Yeah.
And then
Jordan says yes. I'm not sure if I've got him in there yet, but I mean, it's like I'm doubting, and I've reaped all the benefit. I feel a bit bad about that. The one thing that I point at or look at so far is like Steele's run for mids has been very nice. It had Geelong round 1, Collingwood round 2, especially when they were down in form, Essendon, and then Richmond. These are like 4 of the nicest matchups so far. And then the next 3 weeks you're going into GWS, Bulldogs, and Port, which are going to be 3 of the hardest. So I'm really curious to see after the next 3 weeks, is he still going at 115 plus over? If he goes 115 plus over the next 3, then I'm like, yeah, he's absolutely in the top 8. I think the hard part is like you probably missed the boat then. So it feels you kind of have to go now. Like, did the fact that they were easy matchups matter? And if the answer is no,
surely
then jump on him.
Sure.
You'd think so.
He's actually surprisingly gone well against the Giants in the past. Old club, maybe.
Well, it's old club. Yeah, a bit of a revenge game. The narrative.
It's hard to point towards some of last year's games. He was playing with knee strapping, wasn't 100%. I don't know. I think he just looks a lot better this year. He just does. He does. It just doesn't look like he was hampered like he was hampered last year, in which he was at the end of the year. Obviously, a few off-season surgery. So he just looks really good. What do you think? I just think Head says Martin, 60k cheaper for one, sort of more likely to be top of his line than Steele. And yeah, can help your defense next week or 2 weeks. I'm almost toying JD with going, because I don't know Flanders as well, going Martin and Steele and no Flanders, because Flanders break even's 90. I can still look at him at
it's true. You
much
can.
More.
I mean, I'm passing on Flanders
Martin's
this
is
week
30
as well to get Marshall.
Is
that's
60.
the thing. Yeah. So Martin's break even is low, and Bulldogs I don't think have been the best for SuperCoach for defenders, but for DVP for fantasy they are a very plus matchup. So yeah, Martin is one. I think you jump on this week, or you're going to struggle to find him cheap at any other point in the future. So I think I'd have Martin 1 over Steele. And then, yeah, maybe you do jump on Steele over Flanders just because of the break-even game. You get one more look at Flanders in the role and then can decide from there. I still have Flanders as a top target for me just because, once again, I know he's going to be top of the line. He's sub 600.
Might be nice to see another week at halfback, though, actually. So,
yeah,
I might end up doing that. Word from George, his outage details is due back 1 a.m. tomorrow or 12:15 or something. So he's out.
That's pretty crazy that they know
That's funny,
that
isn't
quickly when it's going to be back, like the ETA. But yes, I guess that's the second time a power surge has ended my interest in football for the week. So maybe we should wrap up there.
Yeah. Captains, I think. Is
We haven't
easiest
even
week
touched on them.
of
Gone
the
vice captain, bang, 216
and
last
probably
time.
take it.
Yeah, 216.
Bond against you
last time he
blokes.
faced
Set
them.
a field out.
Yep.
You're a bit worried. Like,
about Essendon? No, I've lost all hope. I'll just enjoy Bont's performance. I'll watch Bont. I'll watch Nick Martin. I'll hope for a merit down game. Hopefully Sanders and Darcy get some reasonable time on ground so I can field them. But yeah, don't know.
What I am worried about is those taking a Gorn 130 and Bont going 200. That's probably what I'm more worried about.
This has been me every week. I took what was it, Gorn 129 last year, and even though Heaney was my captain, I went off it and it cost me 36 points. So I've got a great captain average of mid 120s or high 120s.
It's people with 160.
People with 160, and over 4 weeks, it's 120 points. Like, that's crazy. Between 100 points lost on rookie roulette round 1, 120 on captains. I'm sure that's the difference between where I'm ranked and top 1,000, which is just nuts. Sorry, it's a bit of a rant. People don't really care about that stuff, and everyone's got their own stories, right? If everyone had the optimal stuff, I'd still be where I am, or probably even further behind. So whatever. But yes, that is very frustrating because so one thing I think, if I was to criticize my reason why I've maybe ended up with just okay but not great, is I haven't thought outside of the box enough. So is there anyone else that you really like as an option this year, this round, Marshall into Briggs, who seems to concede some decent scores? Saints give up mega points to defenders. So if you have Whitfield, is he an option? You mentioned Steele, revenge game narrative. He's got very good history. Is there anyone else that really speaks to you this round?
Nah, I can't. This round just lines up all too well, doesn't it? I take these risks in fantasy or Dream Team, JD. I put the captaincy on Rowan Marshall last week in Dream Team.
Oh, boom.
And I just, because I don't care as much, and it paid off. Good matchup. I don't tend to do this in SuperCoach too much. Maybe a risky VC, obviously, for upside, but I just think that is just gone, right? And it'll get interesting once maybe he doesn't fire. If he doesn't, which I'm pretty confident he will, but I'd still probably be too scared to not go Bont. I mean, Green maybe is the only one that interests me, maybe against the Saints. Tom Green fan club in the crowd.
Yep. If you were like a Rowell or Took Miller owner, would you consider them against the Hawks?
Maybe, but they're just not confident with Rowell with the C, as well as he's playing, as good as he looks.
Yep.
I don't know if I'd see him. It's just something about Rowell. He just gets 90 Dream Team, and it depends how many ground balls he gets and whatnot, which, to be fair, is probably a hell of a lot every week. But I don't know. There's no it just scares me. Not scares me. Yeah. He's going to probably get decent enough and not kill you, but I just like guys that get more of the pill.
Yeah, all right. So, I mean, Gorn into Bont makes sense. If you don't have Gorn, then probably Bont VC. If you don't have either of those VC, then you're probably either of those options. Then I think you're probably looking at someone from that Saints GWS game of Steele, Green, even Whitfield, if you want to go a riskier VC. And then after that, the captains I think are pretty dicey because it's either Miller, Rowell, Sarong. If you have those types, I probably wouldn't touch the Port mids either in Butters or Rosie or anything like that, even though they could be good this week. So I think that's why if you can find a Gorn or a Bont, then that's where I'd be looking to.
All right, let's wrap it up. I've got to upload this one now. George has no power, so I'll be uploading it to his YouTube. And we'll get that out on the SoundCloud tonight. Thanks for listening, guys, and watching. If you are on YouTube, I don't know what that. I have to go back and look at what George's still shot looked like. That would have been hilarious. I'll get a screenshot of it. Looked like he was a zombie, I think, in the dark. I thought he was frozen. Like I thought he was like just sitting there frozen, but he was actually power surge. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.